Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is Liège, Bastogne-Liège 2023, the last of the spring monuments, number 4. There's one more left in October called Tour of Lombardy, but right now, if you're a springtime cycling fan, this is going to be your last day for the big monument races and the big time classics up in the north of Belgium. Now, when we're talking about today's race at 258 kilometers, 168 miles long, of course you have to look to the midway point when you're going through all the Stakkur climbs in the town of Stavelot. There's about 3 climbs just as you're entering in, and then of course 1 as you exit. That always affects the race at Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Got to remember, the first 100 miles before you're coming into Stavelot, that is just setting up the fatigue in all the riders' legs. And when the cameras start coming on proper, we get the bad news that Tadej Pogačar is going to be missing from this year's Liège-Bastogne-Liège final because he crashed somewhere at about 84 kilometers into today's Liège-Bastogne-Liège. So when the cameras are coming on, it's only Soudal Quickstep on the front. Now they're all over the front, but they're not quite pulling hard 100% just yet. Let's move the cameras up to the 11 rider breakaway that's up front with about a 4-minute gap. In that breakaway, Simone Velasco from Astana's in there, Mathies Liebert from Arkea Samsic, Jason Osborne from Alpecin, Lars Vandenberg from FDJ, Paul Orselin from Total Energies, Jorg Zimmermann from Intermarché, Frederic Devernens from Uno X, Johan Miens from Bingle, Alexander Balmer from Jayco, Rubens Appers from Flanders team, and Hector Carretero from Kern Farmer will wrap up that 11 riders out front that had a maximum time of 4.5 minutes. Now, we only need to get a couple more kilometers into the race when we see Julian Alaphilippe look over at his teammates. He looks at them, starts talking, they start giving nods back, and now it's time for Soudal Quickstep to get to the front and start making things hard because we're at about 130 kilometers to go here at Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Now, these next kilometers, it's Soudal Quickstep all the time at the front. I told you guys yesterday on Beyond the Coverage that we would see UAE Team Emirates and Soudal Quickstep just trying to blow this race up through the whole early parts of the race so we could get to La Redoute, and then you could see Remco Evenepoel and Tadej Pogačar have the epic battle between each other on who is going to be the number 1 rider at the end of the classics here at Liège-Bastogne-Liège. But with that crash and the injury to the wrist of Tadej Pogačar, he's out and heading on his way to the hospital. So this is why we're only seeing 1 team on the front. But all the other teams are intelligent. There's no reason to get on the front because Soudal Quickstep's on there and they're driving the pace hard. Now, as we start getting into the famous climbs of the Stakkur, as we start seeing the riders come in there, we start seeing Soudal Quickstep coming off the back with their first riders, and then we see attack with 85 kilometers to go from Jumbo-Visma's Jan Tratnik. Tratnik's got some company from the American rider Magnus Sheffield Ineos, and I don't like this tactic. Okay, here's the problem. They're making it harder. This is the hardest selection point in Liège-Bastogne-Liège when you're talking about 95 kilometers to about 75 kilometers to go. This 25K here is incredibly difficult. The climbs at about 1 to 3 kilometers long, and they're all well into the double digits for percentage. But when you see Quickstep already on the front going full gas, there's no reason to make the race even harder because you want the race to be a little bit softer. There's already the group of 11 that's starting to come apart up there in the break, but there's already pressure for Soudal Quickstep to bring those guys back. So when I start seeing these attacks from Jumbo-Visma and from Ineos, if they had big numbers, if they could tack someplace on a flatter section, maybe just after the town of Stavelot here, or someplace where maybe before you come into Stavelot, that would make more sense where you could get some time and put some pressure there on Soudal Quickstep. But when you're going up the climbs, Soudal Quickstep's already going full gas at the front there with Peter Siri lighting stuff up as we're going through these climbs anyways. So they're going maximum speed. Whatever damage we're going to see done to the peloton and to Soudal Quickstep from their pace setting, they're going to make it happen themselves, just because Remco Evenepoel wants everything as hard as it could possibly be all the way into La Redoute. That's why they put their team on the front with 132 kilometers to go. So we see Jan Tratnik as he exits the town of Stavelot, going up the last climb, he's blazing through a lot of the guys that have been getting dropped from the break, and he'll bridge all the way up to about 5-6 guys left of the original break 11, and then he's just going to start drilling those guys at 65 kilometers to go until about 60K, where it's only Jan Tratnik and Simone Velasco from Astana that are left in the front of the race. Now behind, what was happening? As they were leaving Stavelot, going out of the last climb, Julian Alaphilippe, if you look back there, he's at the back of the peloton swinging back there. Started riding the climb before, now he's starting to feel the efforts for the Frenchman as he's swinging on the back. Soudal Quickstep will back off the throttle just a little bit, and this will let Julian Alaphilippe back on the front. But through the town of Stavelot, there was chaos back there from big-time favorites coming out the back left and right in the form of David Gaudu. George Bennett came out the back. Mikel Landa, who had a fabulous Flèche Wallonne, going a podium there. Now he's coming out the back as they're leaving Stavelot. There'll be other kind of people having all sorts of problems back there as we see Alexei Lusenko that was coming out the back the same time when we see Julian Alaphilippe at the back of the peloton. Now, Julian Alaphilippe, like I said, Soudal Quickstep will back off the throttle. He'll get back to the front and start setting some tempo. And then we look up at the two breakaway riders up there, Jan Tratnik's waving, trying to get Simone Velasco to come through and do a pull, but the Astana rider doesn't want any of it right now. Remember, he's been in the break for 120 miles or so. There's no way that he wants to come up there and pull with Jan Tratnik, who's just blazed through that 3-minute lead that the breakaway riders had when he attacked at 85 kilometers to go. Caught everyone, now dropped everyone. So Velasco, he's intelligent right here for Astana. He's not going to pull through. We'll see Jan Tratnik a little upset, but he'll still stay on the front. Now behind, Julian Alaphilippe starts to come off, and when he does his last pull, we see the next rider up for Soudal Quickstep, and this is going to be Louis Vervaeke. Vervaeke's doing a solid ride as he's pulling on the front. Then we start seeing Valters from Jumbo-Visma coming up to the front there in front of Soudal Quickstep, yelling at the camera motorcycle, waving them off. We see Vervaeke look over at Valters like, dude, just get out of my way. Remco Evenepoel looks over at him too. And then we see Omar Fraley from Ineos give a look over there at Valters like, dude, you know the motorcycle's going to be up here. When we look further up at the Jumbo-Visma rider off the front, Jan Tratnik, well, he's got cars in front of him too. In fact, when you go back to the back of the peloton, we'll see Mark Hirschi, UAE Team Emirates. He's got the car next to him, giving him a feed as he's getting a little hand sling, getting back to the back of the peloton. So Valters, everybody's getting some help at this point in time. And the only problem for Valters, when he finally came off the front after yelling at the motorcycle, he went off into the grass to the left side, kept the bike upright, but had to get back to the back of the peloton, so lost a ton of positioning just to go up there and argue with the motorcycle. Now, we start coming into just over 45 kilometers to go. Trek Segafredo's Bach Mollema throws in attack. This point in time, I don't mind this attack because we're a little bit further in. Quickstep's been on the front for a long time, and they're starting to look a little bit ragged as we see Vervaeke come off the front with the attack from Bach Mollema. Now, all of a sudden, Quickstep are down to just 2 riders. But they only need to get 10 kilometers before La Redoute starts proper. Only thing is, for Soudal Quicksteps, Remco Evenepoel, he wants a fresh Van Wilder to start La Redoute proper. And so with Van Wilder bringing back Trek Segafredo's attack there from Bach Mollema, they'll slow the pace up. We see on the radio there, Remco Evenepoel, he wants it to go slow because this will bring back Louis Vervaeke from the back of the peloton and bring him back up to the front to start one more pull. Now we start coming into the descent before the La Redoute starts proper. Right around 40 kilometers to go, Team Ineos come flying to the front with 5 riders as they're taking the descent, trying to put Tom Pidcock in a good position to start La Redoute. Now, look at the size of the peloton here. It's really small. I don't really like their tactic here because, again, they're coming to the front to try to keep their guy Tom Pidcock at the front to start La Redoute. Only thing is, when they come to the front, they're going to let Soudal Quickstep back there have a little bit more rest, which means Van Wilder can be a little fresher starting La Redoute. Now we see as the La Redoute starts proper up front, Jan Tratnik, Simone Velasco, who's held onto the Jumbo-Visma rider's wheel, they'll start to climb with only about a 20-second gap, and you look behind, it's Van Wilder on the front for Remco Evenepoel. This is what we all expected, what I talked about yesterday on Beyond the Covers, and Van Wilder immediately catches Jan Tratnik, Jumbo-Visma, and Simone Velasco with only that 20-second gap as we're just about 1/4 of the way into La Redoute proper. Now we see all of a sudden Van Wilder, he's throwing in everything, throwing the ugly face. We look over at Remco Evenepoel, he looks pretty solid. He's out in the wind. Looks like he's getting ready to throw in his first big-time attack here at Liège, Bastogne-Liège. And instead, the Belgian rider slots behind his teammate. Tom Pidcock slots up just next to Van Wilder's wheel out in the wind. And I'm thinking, Tom, boy, save your energy, man. Sit on the wheel. We know an attack's coming from Remco Evenepoel at some point in time, and it doesn't take much longer before Remco Evenepoel throws in massive acceleration. He gets the gap instantly on Tom Pidcock, the Ineos rider, who's trying to close up with every pedal stroke as hard as he can. Now we look just behind. There's a few chasers back there, but the peloton's split up all over the place as Van Wilder had this group down to 10 riders at the front of Liège-Bastogne-Liège before Remco Evenepoel threw in his blistering attack. Going over the summit, Remco Evenepoel's got a few second gap on Tom Pidcock as we start the right turn instead of going left at La Redoute like they have done in years past. Now they're going right, slight descent, and Tom Pidcock will use his descending skills to get back up onto the wheel of the Belgian rider Remco Evenepoel. Now 2 riders up front, 2 riders chasing in the form of Trek Segafredo. It's Ciccone back there and Skilmos that are putting on a display here over La Redoute and Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Up front, we see Remco Evenepoel look straight back at the eyes of Tom Pidcock because he wants him to come through and take a pull. What does Tom Pidcock do? I can't do it! He can't take a pull with the big guy from Belgium as Remco Evenepoel starts accelerating on the pedals. Behind the 2 riders, Trek Segafredo, they're trying to bring up some time on the 2 riders up front, but they're not having any inroads done into the speed of Remco Evenepoel. Now the cameras go further back and you see the guys chasing back there, a group of 5 chasing, being followed by another group of around 10 riders back there trying to chase them. Now the cameras go back up front to Remco Evenepoel. He doesn't know it, but the gap starts to open up on Tom Pidcock, the Ineos rider. Now all of a sudden, we see Remco Evenepoel look down between his legs, and he realizes there's a gap there, looks back right over his shoulder, sees Tom Pidcock's coming off the wheel, and Remco Evenepoel accelerates on the pedals. See ya in the douches, Tom Pidcock, as Remco Evenepoel starts accelerating hard. There's nothing Tom Pidcock can do or anybody else in the professional peloton here at Liège-Bastogne-Liège as the Belgian rider is setting a blistering pace and with every pedal stroke putting time on everyone. Tom Pidcock, who's trying to bring back the Belgian rider, but like I said, losing time everywhere. He'll get caught by the Trek Segafredo duo back there of Ciccone and Skilmos. Then all of a sudden, we'll see Ben Healy, EF Education, come blistering out of that group as he'll bridge up to the 3 riders in front of him to make 4. 2 more riders will bridge up, one with Bahrain Victorious. That'll make 6 up there, but they're not having any chemistry. And when we look up front to Remco Evenepoel, his gap is at about a minute. Now we're getting ready to start Rocha Falcon, the last and final climb here of Liège-Bastogne-Liège. It's a vicious climb at the start. Percentages well into the double digits here as we see Remco Evenepoel never hesitate or slow down. Behind everything had come back together with about a 20-rider group back there. And we're going to see attack from Sivakov Ineos. He's going up the road, got Ben Healy on his wheel and Santiago Buitrago. Then Ben Healy throws in acceleration and the Ineos rider gets popped and goes back to the group. Now we see Ben Healy along with Santiago Buitrago, who does not want to pull with Ben Healy. He will eventually come through, but the Bahrain Victorious rider was at the limit. Ben Healy's doing most of the work at front, and then just as we start to see the plateau before the last bump to finish the climbing here at Liège-Bastogne-Liège, Tom Pidcock, Ineos will bridge from the group behind to make 3 chasers behind Remco Evenepoel, if you want to call them chasers, because they're losing time all over the place to Remco Evenepoel, who's some at the top here of Col de Rochefaucagne in fabulous style, still accelerating, never looking like he's slowing down. Now the 3 riders behind, they'll work well together with Santiago Buitrago coming through, Ben Healy taking strong pulls, and Tom Pidcock going hard at the front to try to secure a podium here at Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Going down the descent, we see it's Remco Evenepoel who's taking all the corners, super gentle, but then accelerating hard on the pedals afterwards to make sure there's no incidents before the final here at Liège-Bastogne-Liège, because Soudal Quick-Step need to salvage their classic campaign here at 2023. With 3.5 kilometers to go, all of a sudden, the Belgian rider, Remco Evenepoel, looks over at the camera, starts smiling, gives the little fingers off the handlebar like this, and we know Remco Evenepoel's got this Liège-Bastogne-Liège wrapped up as he takes it all the way into the finish and starts celebrating, getting the crowd all pumped up with the arms raised. Behind what's happening for second and third on the podium, well, Ben Healy threw in a masterful attack as he knows he can't win the sprint. Does it with about 500-600 meters going into the last corner here at Liège-Bastogne-Liège, hoping he can get a gap, but Tom Pidcock, the British rider, is too smart and savvy. He knows it's coming, jumps right away onto the wheel of Ben Healy. Then we go into 250 meters to go. Santiago Buitrago attacks from the back. Tom Pidcock jumps him with 100 meters to go to get second on today's Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Third, going to Santiago Buitrago from Bahrain Victorious, and fourth, Ben Healy from EF Education, who's having a magical week of racing up here in the Ardennes Classics. Congratulations, fabulous riding from Ben Healy, tactically very smart all the way until he got caught with about 500, 400 meters to go. Once we see that the Santiago Buitrago latched on, he should have just sat up then and tried to save a little bit of energy for the sprint, but Ben Healy went all the way into the line instead. Now, for Soudal Quick-Step, Remco Evenepoel, magical day, right? They add a little bit of help in the cycling gods, or the cycling evil gods, whatever you want to call them, because Tadej Pogačar, of course, crashed out, and that changed the whole race for all of us fans, and of course for the Slovenian and the Team UAE team members, because Tadej Pogačar was hoping to go for the trifecta with, of course, Amstel Gold, Flèche Wallonne, and Liège-Bastogne-Liège, winning all 3 in a row, but with his crash, he's out. The big question is, what's wrong with Tadej Pogačar, and can he heal up in time to get himself ready for the Tour de France? Well, sounds like he has a broken wrist. If it's a broken wrist and not complicated, I've had them in the past. Of course, we're talking 6 weeks. 2 weeks, thereabouts, before you can start getting on the bike, but you can't really start training really hard until all of a sudden the cast can come off. So it's going to be tight for the Tour de France, but the Slovenian could most likely probably make it. Now, what you're thinking right now with Tadej Pogačar, at least what you should be thinking, is I'm always thinking back to those Lance Armstrong 7 victories at the Tour de France when he won them back in the 90s and then going into the early 2000s. When you look at the luck that Lance had throughout 7 years of never breaking anything this close to the Tour de France, not getting sick, not getting the flu, not getting food poisoning during the race, not getting a bad cold or anything like that, the magical part about arriving at the Tour de France 7 years in a row without any bad incidents is what's on display right here with Tadej Pogačar's crash at Liège-Bastogne-Liège. It's going to be questionable whether or not if he can get to the Tour de France. I think as long as it's not a complicated break, the Slovenian can get into the Tour de France and still arrive with fantastic form. Could possibly even be super fresh with brilliant form like we saw last year when he started the Tour of Slovenia and just rode everybody off his wheel, and then of course arrived at the Tour de France in fine form. It is crucial, though, in terms of how bad is the break, how much surgery does it require, are you putting pins and needles into the wrist, or is it just a break, you cast it, and then you're good to go after it sets later? I don't know the answer to that, but I'll bring it to you later on Beyond the Covers whenever that news starts to come out about Tadej Pogačar. Otherwise, Soudal Quick-Step's Remco Evenepoel, congratulations. That was a marvelous display of force going up Col de la Redonde and then just riding off Tom Pidcock without even knowing it from the pressure you're putting on the pedals and going solo all the way into the finish to win Liège-Bastogne-Liège for a back-to-back victory here for the Belgian rider and back-to-back saving the springtime season for Soudal Quick-Step. Congratulations. Big time win. I enjoyed watching it the whole time. Tadej Pogačar, heal up. Hope to see you for the Tour de France. Make sure you guys like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next edition real soon.